Alina Vargas eased her cherry-red Ferrari into a parking spot in front of Café Lumiere, where polished marble steps led up to tables shaded by cream-colored umbrellas. The engine's gentle purr died down, leaving the soft hum of passing traffic. In the chatter of morning customers, she climbed out, smoothing the tailored lines of her charcoal gray suit. This car was more than a vehicle to Alana. It was a symbol of every late night she had worked, every risk she had taken. She locked the door. She glanced at her reflection in the rear window, adjusting a stray lock of hair before she walked toward the cafe entrance. At 10 years old, Marcus Turner loved two things more than anything: machines and solving problems. He had grown up watching his mother fix leaky faucets and broken radios with nothing more than a screwdriver and good sense. He dreamed of one day opening his own garage where he could make old things new again. That morning, he had asked his mother if he could walk down to the corner store for milk. As he left the house, he saw the Ferrari gleaming in the sun. He froze for a moment, his heart fluttering. He had never seen such a car up close before. It looked like a jewel on wheels. Marcus shuffled closer, his sneakers clicking on the pavement. He circled the car, his eyes wide in admiration. Every curve of the body, every polished surface called to him. Could almost feel the engine's roar just by looking at it. Despite his mother's warnings to respect others' property, he felt a curious pull. He reached out slowly, his fingers brushing against the door handle. The metal felt cool under his skin, smooth like glass. He traced the edge, imagining what it would feel like to drive something so powerful. Suddenly, Alina returned. She had just ordered a cappuccino and was walking back toward her car with a confident stride. Behind her, the bell over the cafe door chimed gently. She stopped in her tracks when she saw Marcus by her Ferrari. Her mind raced. That car was brand new. Every scratch was unacceptable. She strode forward, her heels clicking sharply, and snatched Marcus by the shoulder. "What do you think you're doing?" she snapped, her voice tight with anger. Marcus jumped and spun around, his eyes wide. His small body shook. I'm sorry," he stammered. His words tumbled out in a jumble of fear and shame. "Didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to see it." Up close, glanced down at his feet, unable to meet her gaze. "I love cars," he whispered. "I promise I didn't hurt it." Elena's chest heaved as she glared at him. A snarl tugged at her lips. "Keep your hands off my property," she barked. "This isn't some toy." Passersby paused to watch, drawing in a quiet line of witnesses. Some of them offered sympathetic looks to Marcus. Others busied themselves, pretending not to notice. Marcus flinched under Elena's gaze, tears threatening to spill. He opened his mouth to speak, but Alina cut him off. "Get away from my car," she repeated. Her tone was so cold that a chill seemed to pass through the air. Marcus nodded quickly and backed away, pressing his small hands to his chest as if to hold in his racing heart. He mumbled another apology and turned to leave, his eyes downcast. Alina watched him go, her chest still tight. She drew in a shaky breath, her anger mixing with guilt. She wondered if she had gone too far. Alina closed the cafe door behind her and ordered her cappuccino. She tried to focus on the warm foam and the rich coffee aroma, but her mind kept drifting back to the boy. She thought about the years she had spent building her company from scratch. The deals she had won, the disappointments she had overcome. Each one had left its mark like a dent on a car door that needed careful fixing. Now here was this boy, curious and unassuming, touching her most prized possession as if it were a simple toy. She hurried back outside, intent on confronting him again, or at least making sure he stayed away. But as she pulled open the cafe door, she froze. The small side mirror of her Ferrari jiggled gently in the breeze, its plastic mount wobbling as if about to break. She stepped onto the sidewalk and frowned at the damage. How long had it been loose? Her heart sank. She patrolled around the car, inspecting every inch. The mirror's angle had shifted, scraping softly against the door frame each time it moved. She tapped it lightly. It gave in her hand and swung back, but not securely. A knot formed in the pit of her stomach. She hated imperfection. She hated anything that was out of place. She sighed and reached into her bag to pull out her phone, ready to call her assistant or the dealership to get it fixed. The buzzing ring in her ear felt too loud in the quiet morning. She tapped the call button, but then she stopped. She glanced down the street, expecting to see Marcus hurrying away. Instead, she saw an empty sidewalk. The boy was gone. She bit her lip and put her phone back. Maybe it had been that moment when he touched the car mirror, just hard enough to loosen it. She leaned closer and traced her finger along the mount, feeling the crack that ran along the plastic. She closed her eyes, picturing the face of that frightened boy. She had seen fear in his eyes, fear of getting into trouble, fear of disappointing someone he looked up to. She knew what that felt like. She stood up straight and brushed her hair back from her face. Across the street, a window reflected her stance, one hand on her hip, the other holding the leaning mirror. She barely recognized herself. Was she really the kind of person who would yell at a child like that? Her mind flicked back to her own childhood. Her mother working 2 jobs to pay the rent, or the small kindness of strangers who offered her rides and smiles. She had learned to be tough, to protect what was hers.
Yes.
But now she wondered if she had lost some of her compassion along the way. Alina slid a hand into her bag again, this time pulling out a small notebook. She flipped through pages filled with meeting notes and to-do lists until she found a blank sheet.
Ow.
She wrote down the cafe name and the time, 9:43 a.m. She scribbled mirror, loose fix in neat letters.
No.
Then a phone number. She hesitated, then penciled a note too. Herself. Also check on kid. She stared at the words, surprised by her own suggestion. It felt strange, like leaving room for kindness in her perfectly scheduled day. She slipped the notebook back into her bag and zipped it closed. The cafe's bell chimed again as someone else went inside. Lena took a slow breath and squared her shoulders. She decided not to call her assistant just yet. Instead, she walked around to the driver's side, opened the door, and climbed in. Her heart still thumped, but the anger had faded into something softer, concern, maybe even curiosity. She adjusted her seat, fastened the seatbelt, and took a moment to gather herself before she started the engine. The Ferrari's purr felt different now, less like a roar, more like a gentle reminder of why she worked so hard. She peeled away from the curb and coasted down the street. She passed the spot where Marcus had been standing, but the boy was nowhere in sight. She slowed and glanced at the sidewalk, hoping to see him, to offer a kinder word or a quick apology. But the corner was empty. Alina pressed her hand against the steering wheel and whispered, "I'm sorry." She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them and set her jaw. She would make it right both the mirror and her mistake. She drove on, the city unfolding before her, filled with people who had stories of their own. And somewhere out there was a small boy who loved machines, waiting for someone to believe in him. Lena made a silent promise. Next time she would. Alina tucked her phone back into her bag and waited at the counter as the barista prepared her cappuccino. She watched the steam rise from the cup and tried to calm the flutter in her chest. The cafe was warm and bright, with soft music playing in the background and the scent of fresh pastries in the air. She took a slow sip, hoping the sweetness of the foam would soothe her mood. Yet her mind kept drifting back to the loose mirror on her Ferrari. She set the cup down with a soft clink and forced her gaze to meet the barista's. "Thank you," she said, managing a small smile. The barista, an older woman with gentle eyes, nodded and offered rough morning. Alina hesitated but nodded. "You could say that," she admitted. "I had an incident with a kid and my car mirror got jostled." She pinched the bridge of her nose. "Now it's loose. I can't have that." The barista wiped her hands on a towel and leaned forward. "Kids push limits, but maybe he didn't mean harm." She spoke slowly, as if choosing each word with care. "And your car can be fixed. Small things break. It's not the end." Alina felt a small warmth at the woman's kindness. She nodded again, grateful yet still uneasy. "You're right," she said. "But I hate imperfections. I feel like I should fix it right now." The barista laughed softly. "Life isn't perfect either. Sometimes we need to let small things go. She gestured at the crowded cafe. See all these people? They come here for a moment of peace, not perfection. Alina glanced around. People chatted over coffee, read newspapers, tapped on laptops. The world outside seemed full of small mistakes, spilled drinks, mismatched socks, forgotten passwords. Yet everyone carried on. A chime from the cafe door made Alina look up. A woman rushed in, shaking rain from her umbrella. The barista moved to help, and Alina slipped away, cradling her cappuccino. She headed to her Ferrari, parked in the single spot before the cafe. As she opened the door, the loose mirror wobbled again, rattling softly against the car's body. The sound grated on her nerves. She stepped back and stared. A knot of frustration tightened in her stomach. She tapped the mirror's edge and it swung more freely than she liked. She wished she had a toolkit in the car, or an assistant on call. Instead, she had only herself in this moment of stillness at the curb. She took another sip of coffee, her mind racing. If she left it another day, the mirror might fall off completely, or worse, get snapped by a careless passerby. She shook her head. She needed a plan. She reached into her bag and pulled out her notebook. She flipped to the page she had marked earlier and read her note. Mirror loose fix. Call dealership? She tapped the page with her pen. Calling a dealership would take time waiting for the tow truck, scheduling an appointment. She frowned. She had meetings in an hour and she could not be late. Maybe she could find a local mechanic. She jotted down search for mobile mechanic and closed the book. The engines per called to her. She climbed in, adjusted the seat, and closed the door. Each time she moved the wheel, she heard the faint rattle. She rubbed her thumb along the stitching of the steering wheel and forced herself to focus on the road ahead. She was due at a board meeting in 20 minutes. The car glided out of the parking spot and joined the flow of traffic. As she drove, her thoughts drifted back to Marcus. She wondered if he had gone home, perhaps to tell his mother about the encounter. She pictured him standing on her doorstep again, this time offering to help rather than to touch. She felt a pang of regret at her harsh words. He had looked so small and frightened. She had been quick to anger, quick to defend her property without thinking of the boy beneath. Her mind shifted to her meeting. She was the final speaker, set to present new product designs that could change the industry. She straightened her posture and reminded herself that her work was important, yet she could not shake the memory of Marcus's wide eyes and trembling voice. She pressed her lips together and steered toward her office tower. Inside the lobby, Alina greeted the receptionist and took the elevator to the top floor. The plush carpet muted her steps as she entered the conference room. Her team sat around a long table waiting expectantly. She placed her cappuccino beside her notes and cleared her throat. Thank you all for being here, she began, her voice steady. She spoke. She felt the familiar surge of confidence. The rattle in the car was replaced by the click of her PowerPoint advancing. She outlined the new designs, highlighting sleek lines and cutting-edge features. Her colleagues nodded, impressed. She answered questions with ease, drawing on months of research. For a moment, she felt in control again. The worry about the mirror and the boy slipped to the back of her mind. She reminded herself that she could handle more than one challenge at a time. After the meeting, her assistant waited by the door. Great job, he said, handing her a printout of the next appointment. Then you have lunch at the charity fundraiser, and after that, the mobile mechanic arrives at 2. Alina looked at the mechanic note with surprise. She had asked him to set it up earlier. She had forgotten. Thank you, she said, forcing herself to smile. 2 o'clock sounds good. As he left, she leaned against the doorframe, closing her eyes for a moment. She took a deep breath, then opened her eyes and straightened. She had her day planned out. She could fix the mirror, attend events, and still make an effort to find that boy. She slipped her notebook from her bag and scribbled "look for optional" under the mechanic note. She zipped it closed and tucked it back away. She would try. She had to. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, sipping a glass of milk. His mother stirred soup on the stove, humming softly. She turned and noticed him staring at the empty street beyond. The window. You okay, sweetie? She asked. Marcus nodded, but his brow furrowed. Yes, Mama, he sighed. I touched a car this morning, a Ferrari. A lady yelled at me. He looked up, eyes shining. She was so mad. I'm sorry. His mother set her spoon down and came to his side. She wrapped her arm around him and hugged him close. It's all right. You didn't mean harm? She kissed the top of his head. I'm proud of your curiosity. Just remember to ask first. Marcus leaned into her warmth and nodded. He thought about the mirror. He wondered if the lady had seen how it got loose. He decided that if he could, he would help. It back. He imagined himself by the Ferrari, twisting the mirror's mount until it held firm. Then the lady's anger would fade, and maybe she would smile. He smiled at the thought. Back at her office, Elena packed up her things and left. Walked through the city streets, her heels clicking on the pavement. She passed a toy store window and paused. Inside, little cars lined the shelves. Marcus would love a miniature Ferrari, she thought. She decided then that she would buy one for him. She stepped inside, picked up a bright red model car, and tucked it under her arm. When she reached her own car, the mirror rattled again. She set the model car on the roof and knelt beside the wheel. She placed her hands gently on the mirror mount, turning it slightly to test the play. She smiled at the feel of something she knew how to handle, even if it was just a test. She stood, opened the door, and climbed in. She drove toward the charity luncheon, the little red toy balanced on the passenger seat. The day stretched ahead, filled with appointments and events. Yet Elena felt a new lightness in her step. The small mishap had reminded her of the kindness. She could choose. She would fix the mirror, she would check on the boy, and she would share a bit of herself along the way. The city buzzed around her, full of noises and moments waiting to be shaped by her choices. And in her heart, she carried a promise to turn a jolt of anger into a spark of connection. ChatGPT said. Marcus stood on the curb, his heart still pounding from the morning's events. The city around him buzzed with life taxes honked, cyclists weaved between cars, and pedestrians hurried past storefronts. Yet for Marcus, everything felt silent as he watched Elena's Ferrari. He remembered how she had yanked him away, her voice sharp and unkind. He felt ashamed, but he also felt something else, a strange pull to help in any way he could. He took a deep breath and stepped toward the car. He kept his hands in his pockets at first, as if studying the scene might help him think. Ferrari gleamed sunlight off its curves, a bright red slash against the gray of the street. Marcus swallowed. He had never fixed a car before, but he had watched his mother tighten screws on old radios and patch holes in leaky pipes. He trusted his instincts. He knelt beside the mirror, crouching so low that his shirt brushed the pavement. He blinked against the sun as he bent closer. The plastic mount was cracked where it joined the car's body. A thin line ran along the edge, splitting the smooth shape. Whenever the wind caught it, the mirror wobbled. Marcus touched it gently, careful not to make it worse. His fingers traced the crack, feeling the rough edge of broken plastic. He frowned. He needed to realign it so the crack closed. Closed his eyes and remembered his mother's words. Find where the problem starts, then move toward the solution. He located the small tab on the mirror's underside, the same tiny tab he had seen on car mirrors before. He pressed it gently. Clicked. The mirror popped outward a fraction of an inch. He held his breath. If he turned it back, maybe the parts would snap into place. He twisted his wrist, guiding the mirror in a slow arc. The tab engaged with the mount, and for a moment his heart leaped. He thought he had it. But then the mirror hit the car's body and stuck at the wrong angle. He frowned and backed off. He let go to study the mount again. His fingers found a second tab hidden behind the mirror's housing. Pinched it between his thumb and forefinger. Felt like plastic, sharp. At the edges, but solid. He pressed both tabs at once and pushed the mirror toward the car. The crack in the mount seemed to close. He held the mirror steady for a moment, feeling the pieces click together. He released the tabs and watched. The mirror wobbled at first, but then settled. He tapped it lightly. Marcus's chest swelled with pride. He had fixed a real Ferrari mirror without any tools. He paused, breathing hard from the effort. His hands were dirty from the pavement, but he scarcely noticed. He stood slowly, brushing gravel from his knees. He glanced around, expecting Alina to leap out and shout at him again. But the street was calm. A woman with a stroller passed by, giving him a curious look. He held his breath, waiting for something to happen. Then he noticed Alina turning the corner. She walked fast, her heels clicking on the sidewalk. Her face was set in a serious expression, as if she was about to confront someone. Marcus ducked his head, fearing the worst. He looked at the mirror again, sat flush against the car, solid and steady. Alina reached the Ferrari and stopped. She crossed her arms and stared at the mirror. Then her eyes drifted downward and she saw Marcus standing a few feet away. He looked smaller now, almost childlike in his loose t-shirt and worn sneakers. His hands were at his sides. He didn't know what to say. Elena's chest rose and fell as she processed the scene. The wind teased a lock of her hair across her face. She blinked, taken by surprise. Marcus had not run away. He stood and waited, respectful but uncertain. Alina felt something shift inside her. Her anger drained away, replaced by astonishment and curiosity. "Did you fix it?" Her voice quieter than before. Marcus blinked and nodded. I think so," he said. His voice was soft but clear. He took a small step forward. "I watched my mother fix things at home," he said. "She always told me that if something breaks, you look for the place that came loose and guide it back. I wanted to help." Alina studied him. His eyes were honest and open. His hands were still dirty, and a speck of dust clung to his cheek. She ran her thumb along the edge of the mirror. It stayed firm. She gave a small nod, almost to herself. "Show me," she said. She pointed to the mirror mount. Marcus scrambled down again, his knees brushing the cement. He crouched and pointed out the tabs he had pressed. He explained each step slowly, how he had found the tabs, how he pressed them, and how he guided the mirror back into place without breaking the mount. Alina leaned in, listening as if learning a secret. She asked a question here, a question there, and Marcus did his best to answer. He felt his cheeks warm with pride. When Marcus finished, he stood up. Alina reached into her bag and pulled out a small bottle of hand sanitizer. She offered it to Marcus. "Here," she said softly. "Clean your hands." Marcus smiled gratefully and rubbed the sanitizer on his palms. He sniffed, the fresh scent filling his nose. Turned the bottle over in his hand. "Thank you," he said. "I'm sorry for touching your car earlier." He looked at her with earnest eyes. "I didn't mean any harm." Alina closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered her own harsh words, the way she had snapped at him. She felt a flush of shame. She held out her hand, palm up. "I'm sorry too," she said. "I shouldn't have yelled. I let my anger at the mirror come out on you. You were just curious." She paused and scanned his face. Marcus nodded. She reached down and gently patted his shoulder. "You have a real talent," she said. "Not many people can fix a Ferrari mirror with their bare hands." Marcus's eyes lit up at her praise. A shy smile stretched across his face. Alina stood and took a step back, giving him space. They looked at the car together. The mirror glinted in the sun, back in its proper place. The Ferrari seemed to shine brighter, as if relieved. Elena's heart softened. She closed her hand around her bag strap and took a breath. "Would you like a ride?" she asked. Marcus's jaw dropped. He blinked, hardly believing his ears. She smiled. "Just a short one, out to the parking lot." "I want to see how it feels." "In your hands." Marcus nodded vigorously. He climbed into the passenger seat, careful not to dirty the leather. Alina slid into the driver's seat, adjusted the mirror for him, and started the engine. The Ferrari growled to life, strong and smooth. They drove through the city streets, Alina pointing out the steering wheel and pedals. Marcus's eyes were wide as he placed his hands on the wheel, guided by Elena's gentle instructions. His grin was contagious. He looked like a boy on his first amusement park ride. Alina watched him in the rearview mirror, her own stern expression melting into delight. After a short loop, they returned to the curb. Alina cut the engine and turned to Marcus. "Thank you," she said simply. Marcus hopped out and faced her. "Thank you for giving me the chance," he replied. He held out his hand. Lena knelt and shook it firmly. "I have an idea," she said. "If you ever want to learn more, come to my workshop. I'd like to teach you." Marcus's eyes shone. He looked at his feet, then back at her. "Yes," he said. "I would love that." Elena stood, watching him run off toward home. She felt a warm glow in her chest. The city continued its busy hum, but here on this curb two strangers had found a connection built from a broken mirror and a child's curiosity. As she leaned against her Ferrari, Elena knew this was the start of something new for both of them. Elena's workshop smelled of oil and metal and possibilities. She led Marcus through a row of workbenches under bright lights. Each bench held tools neatly arranged, wrenches, pliers, and screwdrivers of every size. On the walls hung diagrams of engines and electrical circuits. A half-built electric motorcycle rested on a stand in the corner. Marcus's eyes grew wide. He had never seen so many tools or so much space to build and create. Elena smiled at his wonder. She bent down and lifted a simple wrench off a peg. "Let me show you something," she said, handing it to him. "This is a 8mm wrench. Fits nuts and bolts of exactly that size. You use it to hold one side still while you turn the other side with a ratchet." Marcus nodded, gripping the wrench carefully. He twisted his wrist to feel how it fit around a nearby bolt. It felt solid in his hand. Elena guided him to the half-built motorcycle. "This bike uses an electric motor," she said. "See these wires? They carry power from the battery to the motor. One wire is loose, the bike won't run." She gently pointed out a frayed wire. "That one here needs a good connection. We'll fix it together." She knelt beside Marcus and handed him a pair of wire strippers. "Strip the wire ends carefully. About 5mm should be enough." Marcus's fingers trembled with excitement. He placed the wire into the strippers, squeezed gently and pulled. A neat section of insulation came away, revealing the gleaming copper strands beneath. His eyes lit up when he saw the metal gleam. "Like this?" he asked. "Perfect," Elena said, her voice warm. "Now twist the strands together so they don't fray." She showed him how to hold the wire and twist it with his fingers. Marcus copied her moves, twisting until the strands formed a tight braid. He held it out for her to inspect. Elena nodded approvingly. "It's very good. Now we need to solder it to the motor's terminal." She pointed to a small metal post on the motor. "I'll heat this soldering iron. You can hold the wire in place with this clamp." She handed him a C-shaped clamp. Marcus steadied the clamp over the terminal, gripping it as if it were a precious prize. Lena turned on the soldering iron. The tip glowed orange. She waited until it reached the right temperature, then dipped it into a spool of solder. A small bead of metal formed on the tip. She pressed the solder to the joint, and it melted, flowing around the wire and terminal. Marcus watched the liquid metal pool and then harden. "Lena, that's amazing," he whispered. "It looks like it belongs there," she smiled. "'Cause it does. A good solder joint is strong and conducts electricity well. Now, let's test it." She unplugged the power source and connected a small battery pack. She flipped the switch. The motor hummed to life, spinning smoothly. Marcus let out a small cheer. They heffed out. "You did that," Elena said. "You learned quickly." Marcus beamed. He felt a surge of pride. Pictured himself one day leading his own workshop, teaching others the same skills. Elena guided him to another workbench that held a dismantled car side mirror, the very one Marcus had fixed. She lifted the cracked plastic housing. "Remember when you did this yourself?" she asked. Marcus nodded. He reached out to touch the smooth surface. "I do," he said. "I remember how I found the tabs and clicked them back." He traced the crack line with his finger. It felt like solving a puzzle. Elena's gaze softened. "It was a puzzle, and you solved it." She set the mirror housing aside. "Now, I want to show you how to design a part like this yourself so it never cracks in the first place." She wheeled over a 3D printer. Its clear case revealed a shiny metal nozzle inside. This printer uses special plastic filament. It melts and forms layer by layer. "We can design a new mount that's stronger than the old one." She opened a laptop and launched a simple design program. The screen showed a three-dimensional shape of the mirror mount. She zoomed in on the stress points. "See where the crack happened?" she asked, pointing at a thin section. "We can thicken the walls here to distribute the force." She clicked and dragged lines, and the model changed shape. Marcus leaned in close. "It's like drawing with a mouse," he said. "But in 3D?" Alina nodded. "Exactly. Let's try it together." She moved to a blank design file and invited Marcus to sit. He climbed onto a stool and took the mouse. His small hand hovered over it, then he clicked. The cursor blinked. He dragged to draw a simple box. Lena pointed out a toolbar and showed him how to add a curve. Marcus's box turned into a rounded shape. His smile grew. "I can do this," he exclaimed. He worked with Elena's guidance to sketch a mount. With thicker walls and a small lip to protect the wires inside, he added 2 extra tabs for a more secure snap. Lena watched him with admiration. After they finished, Alina saved the file and sent it to the printer. They loaded blue filament into the machine. Alina pressed print, and the nozzle began to move, laying down thin lines of melted plastic. Marcus watched in awe as the mount took shape layer by layer. The workshop filled with the sound of motors whirring. While they waited, Alina asked Marcus about his dreams. He told her how he wanted to fix cars and maybe invent new gadgets for his neighborhood. He spoke of helping his mother so she didn't have to work late nights. His voice was full of hope and determination. Alina listened, feeling moved by his story. She remembered her own early days, working for a single mother who barely made ends meet. When the printer finished, Alina lifted out the new mount. It gleamed in the workshop light. She handed it to Marcus. "Your design," she said. He turned it over in his hand, marveling at the smooth curves and the extra tabs. "Can I try it on the mirror?" he asked. "Absolutely," Alina replied. She brought over the mirror assembly from earlier. Marcus aligned the new mount with the mirror housing and pressed gently. The mount snapped into place with a firm click. He tested the mirror by nudging it with his finger. It held steady. He looked up at Alina, eyes shining. "It works," Alina beamed. "You made it. Designed something that fixes itself better than before." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Marcus." Marcus felt his chest swell. He turned the mirror housing over, admiring every angle. "Thank you for teaching me," he said. Alina's tone grew serious. "I want you to keep learning. In fact, I'd like to hire you as an apprentice. You'll come here after school. And on weekends, I'll pay you, and I'll teach you everything I know." She watched his face. Marcus blinked, overcome. "Really?" he whispered. "Really?" she said, pulling an official-looking notepad from her bag. She wrote down her company's name and address and her cell number. "Show this to your mother. Have her sign it if she agrees." She handed him the paper. His fingers gripped it tightly. He looked at Alina, then down at the offer. "I will," he said, looked up again, voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." "You, Alina?" Outside, afternoon light spilled through the workshop windows. The city hummed beyond the glass, but inside, time felt still. Alina and Marcus stood together, 2 people from different worlds, united by curiosity and kindness. Workshops, tools, and machines waited quietly, ready for their next project. Alina thought of all the challenges ahead: running her company, mentoring Marcus, designing new products. It would be a balancing act. But as she looked at Marcus's eager face, she felt certain she had found something more valuable than any prototype, the spark of a young mind hungry to learn. She smiled and clapped her hands.
Right.
Marcus returned the smile, eyes bright. "Yes, ma'am," he said, and followed her deeper into the workshop. Ready to discover what lay beyond every bolt and wire, every curve and click? ChatGPT said. Alina woke early the next morning, the sun still low in the sky. She stepped into her workshop, the smell of metal and oil greeting her like an old friend. The machines stood silent, waiting for hands to guide them. She checked her phone. A text from Marcus's mother said he'd arrive soon. She smiled and laid out a new project, a disassembled engine head from a classic car, its parts clean but worn. Today, they would rebuild it together. A knock sounded at the door. Alina opened it to find Marcus, his eyes bright, and a backpack slung over one shoulder. He wore his favorite blue cap and carried the signed paper she had given him. He waved shyly. "Good morning, Ms. Vargas," he said. He used her last name as respect. He was still learning how to speak to grown-ups formally. "Good morning, Marcus," she replied, holding the door open. "Ready for today's lesson?" He nodded eagerly and stepped inside, taking in the room as if it were a museum of wonders. Alina guided him to a clean workbench where a tray of parts lay. Pistons, valves, springs, and small bolts were lined up in neat rows. "Today, we rebuild this engine head," Alina explained softly. "It's from a car that's over 30 years old. These parts have worked hard, but together we can bring it back to life." She handed him a clean rag. "First, let's inspect each piece for wear or damage." Marcus leaned over the bench, his small fingers picking up each part one by one. He wiped each piece gently, looking for scratches or pits. When he found a tiny groove on a piston, he held it up. "Is this okay?" he asked. Alina knelt beside him. She examined the piston under a lamp. "A small groove like this is normal from years of use," she said. "But we must keep an eye on it. If it gets deeper, the engine won't seal properly." She tapped the piston gently. "We can polish this small spot. I'll show you how." They moved to a polishing wheel. Alina turned it on. A soft hum filled the air. She demonstrated holding the piston at a slight angle, letting the metal whisper against the wheel. Sparks glimmered like tiny stars, but only for a moment before vanishing. Then it was Marcus's turn. He held the piston carefully and guided it along the wheel. The groove smoothed out, and his face lit up with pride. "Great job," Alina praised. "You have a steady hand," Marcus beamed. He set the piston back and continued polishing the other parts. Each time, Alina gave him a tip. "Hold it a bit firmer, change the angle, breathe slowly." Marcus listened, his brow furrowed in concentration, then relaxed when he succeeded. When all parts were polished, Alina guided him back to the bench. "Now, let's assemble," she said. She handed him a valve. "Insert this into the head, like this." She showed him the path, and he followed her finger. He placed the valve gently and pressed until it clicked. They worked side by side, sliding springs into place and tightening bolts with a torque. Wrench Alina explained how too much force could strip threads or warp metal. Marcus thought carefully before each turn. Sometimes he hesitated, then glanced at Alina for reassurance. She nodded, and he continued, steadying his breath. By midday, the engine head stood whole again, a testament to patience and teamwork. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow. "It looks new," he said in awe. Alina smiled. "It will power a car again soon." She placed a small badge on the bench, a token from her company's first product. "I want you to keep this," she said. "It's a reminder of how far you've come, and of where you belong." Marcus touched the badge gently, as if it were fragile. They cleaned up the workspace and walked outside for lunch. Alina brought sandwiches and lemonade. They sat on a bench under a maple tree, the city's hum a gentle background. Marcus asked about her childhood, and Alina told him how she had studied late at night under a single lamp, how she had dreamed of building machines that helped people. "I never had someone to teach me hands-on," she confessed. "I learned mostly from books and mistakes." She looked at Marcus. "I wish I had your curiosity when I was your age." Marcus shrugged, dipping his sandwich in lemonade. "My mama teaches me at home," he said, "but she works late. I'm happy to learn here." He paused. "Thank you for everything." Alina reached for the badge and wrapped it in tissue. "Keep this safe," she said. "And remember, you can always ask questions. That's how you learn." Marcus nodded, eyes shining. After lunch, they returned to the workshop. Alina introduced a new tool, a digital scanner that captures part shapes in 3 dimensions. "This helps us to make exact copies or improve designs," she explained. She placed the polished engine head under the scanner. Lights flashed as the machine traced every contour. On the screen, a perfect digital model appeared. Marcus stared at it. "It's like magic," he whispered. Pressed a button and saw the model spin. He zoomed in on the smallest detail. "So we can fix anything with this?" "In theory, yes," Alina replied. "And with the 3D printer, We can replace broken parts even if the originals no longer exist. She opened the software and showed him how to adjust a part's thickness. Marcus followed her instructions, changing values until he had a slightly stronger piston. When the model was ready, they sent it to the printer. While it printed, Alina asked Marcus to journal his day in a small notebook she provided. She explained how writing notes helped engineers remember their steps and share ideas. Marcus wrote with neat letters, "In the morning, we polished parts. Then we rebuilt the engine head. After lunch, we scanned it." He paused, then added, "I feel proud." Alina read over his shoulder. "Wonderful," she said. "That's exactly how professionals document work." She signed off with her name at the bottom, Alina Vargas. Marcus's eyes widened. "Wrote your signature?" "It's a promise," Alina said. "My promise to help you learn." By late afternoon, the printed piston lay on the table. It gleamed white and smooth. Alina showed Marcus how to test its fit in the engine head. He slid it into place. It fit perfectly, turned it gently, and it spun with ease. Marcus looked at Alina, speechless with excitement. She nodded. "You did this," she said. "You designed and printed a part. Curve. I can't believe it." Alina placed a hand on his shoulder. "Believe it," she said. "You're capable of amazing things." As the sun dipped lower, Alina glanced at her watch. "Time to call it a day," she said. Marcus cleaned the bench one last time, stacking tools neatly. Alina watched his careful work and marveled at how much he had grown in just a few days. Outside, they said goodbye under the maple tree. Alina handed Marcus the wrapped badge and his notebook. "Keep learning," she said. "I'll see you tomorrow." Marcus clutched the badge in one hand and the notebook in the other. "Thank you, Ms. Vargas," he said, beaming, turned and ran toward home, the badge tucked safely in his backpack. Alina watched him go, her heart full. She stood by her Ferrari, the workshop behind her. The city lights began to glow as dusk settled. She took a deep breath, savoring the quiet moment. The cracked mirror, the angry morning, the shy boy, everything had led to this new path. She opened her notebook and wrote a single line. "Today, I found a future engineer." She closed it, then started her car. The engine's purr was smooth and confident, echoing the day's achievements. Alina drove away into the evening, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. The road stretched ahead, full of possibilities, just like Marcus's journey, driven by curiosity, guided by kindness, and fueled by the belief that even the smallest hands can shape great things.